Welcome back to the Alcohol Free Revolution podcast. My name is Steve Smith.
Oh, I'm James Lloyd.
That was a bit of a half-hearted effort there.
So it just came out the way it came out.
Oh, I'm James Lloyd. Did I just wake you up?
No. I've been,
Okay,
to, I've been,
good,
for, been
good.
to the gym this morning and dog walks
Oh,
and
look,
stuff.
yeah, there you go. You had your ice bath, all of that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
so for those of you that don't know us,
Oh, we're actually
yeah,
doing it. This is the actual one. We're not going to
well, it
redo this
was
one.
until you said that.
It's all right. You can keep it in.
We can
We
keep
keep
it
it all
going.
natural.
Yeah,
I'm all
okay.
about
Well, let's just keep
authenticity.
going. Yeah. So, as I said, well, this is actually a non-guest episode, so I better introduce ourselves for anybody that's new that's listening. So, as I said, my name's Steve Smith, and I'm an alcohol-free performance coach. I have been alcohol-free for coming up to and literally weeks away from
Mm.
my fifth year alcohol-free. What about yourself, James?
Well, you're very much the same. Not quite as far along as you are. I think I'm about 4 months behind you, but yeah, also alcohol-free coach and loving the alcohol-free vibe, and yeah, here to share the joy with everybody. So
And you
yeah.
and you resisted saying on the fun side of the island.
I know the old Annie Ramage quote. I've got to
Exactly.
say, mate, this is the first episode I think we've done just you and me in over 2 months,
I
and
know.
I'm super pumped to do this. I'm so last night I was thinking, oh, it's just me and Steve tomorrow. We haven't done that for ages. That's going to be so much fun. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
know. It's
really,
like
really well up for this episode.
we've had back-to-back huge episodes since we last did this. I think the last time we met, just the two of us, was just after we had Catherine Gray on.
That's right. Oh,
And
did we
since
mention we had Catherine Gray? I'm not sure if
have we mentioned
I'm
that?
not sure we've mentioned that before.
I'm not going to
Just in
mention who
case
we've got
anyone's
coming on, but we'll
uh,
keep that quiet. But keep listening if you're new, because we've got some massive guests coming up in the next
mm.
couple of months. But yeah, just stuck with me this week. But yeah, should be great fun. And yeah, how's your week been going so far?
Do you know what? I feel like we haven't done a pod actually since we've both been going a bit crazy on Instagram in the last kind of couple of months. I mean, I've literally been flat out doing content on Instagram for the last 2 months, apart from the pod with you. I feel like that's all I'm doing like all the time is just talking to a camera and posting it. So that's been pretty much dominating the last couple of months for me. But
Well,
connected with
you've
a nice lot of people, some really lovely people.
And you've cured my early morning doom scrolling, because now actually the very first person I see in the morning when I pick up my phone, and well, I don't anymore because it makes it,
It makes me
it's not
angry.
makes me angry. Is your face, because I literally pick up I've like switch on my phone, have a scroll. Oh, jeez, it's James again. I'm
Fuck's
still
sake,
lying in
no.
bed. It's just to get rid of him.
That's not
So
a good way
yeah,
to start
that's
the day. I
sorted
mean,
out my little addiction. There you go.
oh, okay. I feel I'm glad I've helped you in some way there, mate. So I'm sure a lot of other people have thrown their phones out the windows when they've seen me first thing in the morning. But
Exactly.
you can always hit unfollow. Don't hit unfollow.
Very true. I can,
You can.
but nobody else. Don't do that. Don't do that. But your week's going well. We've got
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
got a heat wave coming.
We have, yeah, we have. Where are
We
we
have
now?
got a
So
heat
we're
wave
recording
coming.
this on the 20th of May, and yeah, it's gonna be Armageddon at the weekend, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
80
it
degrees
is.
north. I mean, if you did tune in for weather chat, you were in the right place.
You are in the right place. But the reason I'm so scared about it is I'm actually running an ultra marathon on Saturday. It's going to be 28 degrees, and I've got to get my ass around 40 miles of the South England countryside in the blistering heat. So there you go. So weight loss
Absolute,
program coming on Saturday.
absolute nuts. And then you were saying you've got the what's it called, the Slate Warrior or something?
So no, I'm doing Slate Man on the
Slate Man.
13th of June. I've been training hard for that, which is an ultra distance Ironman. So it's a full distance Ironman for those of you that don't know. An Ironman is a 2.4 mile open water swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and normally a full marathon. But just for good measure, this is a bit longer. So the run is actually 50k, which is just over 31 miles in length. So that's a full day out, and in Snowdon, for no,
Wow.
just to add a cherry on the top of the cake. So I'm actually quite worried about this one, but look, I'm excited and anxious all at the same time.
I don't know where you find the time, to be quite honest. I really
Yeah,
don't.
no,
I mean, I guess this is one of the things about quitting the booze, isn't it? Is we've spoken about this before, and I've always talk quite a lot in coaching about this. Is like you get all this time back, and I always kind of thought that I spent so much time just sat on the couch on a Sunday, watching football, just low energy. And I thought, when I quit drinking, I'm gonna have all of this time, but I haven't got any time because I'm just so fucking busy all the time.
yeah,
I've got so much stuff going on, so
yeah.
so many things I want to do, and I know it's the same for you. And you've obviously got all your Ironman and your running and all the coaching and family, and I don't know if I find the time. I really don't.
Yeah, I had to make a real effort with it recently. I've literally blocked out my Thursday now. My Thursday is my day. Joe doesn't work. She has her day. I get up at the crack of dawn, and that's me out for the day, whether it's run, bike, whatever it happens to be. And it's great. It's lovely. So I've booked nothing in my diary at all on a Thursday. So that's. But then the rest. Don't get me wrong. I still got to fit in around the other
Mm.
6 days.
So I was just looking back at some of the some of the guests we've had on since we last did an episode, you and me. And for anyone who's not, who's quite new to the pod and has only just started following us, going back and check out some of the last kind of 10 episodes. We've had some brilliant guests on. We had obviously both of our wives on, talking about what it's like being married to some alcohol-free evangelist who felt who enjoy going alcohol free so much they decided to quit their job, start a career as a coach, and start a podcast. What was that like? So yeah, you get to hear from our wives, Chris and Joe.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of positive feedback about both of our wives. That sounds a bit weird,
That
but it's definitely
sounds really bad.
that's really weird. So that's definitely worth going and have checking out. And then we had our good friend and colleague Jo Hands on, who's just the most fascinating person to speak to. She's part of our sober tribe. We've known her for a couple of years. And then we had Ollie on, who I used to work with, who's very much was part of my origin story. Great guy. And then we had Anna Donaghy on of the big drink
Yeah,
rethink,
amazing.
and
Yeah.
she was somebody that I've been trying to get on the pod for months, and she didn't disappoint. Her book's fantastic. Her podcast, apart from this one, is the best one out there. I think it's just such a great resource. So if you're on an alcohol-free adventure, go and check out the Anna Donaghy episode. And then we had Lisa on from the community.
Yeah.
So she was our first community member, and probably a good segue for us to talk briefly about the alcohol-free community.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our alcohol-free revolution community is on Mondays at midday. We have a Zoom call. It is entirely free. It is not AA. It's just a place for everybody to come on and chat about alcohol-free life, whether you are 10 years alcohol-free, 5 minutes alcohol-free, not even alcohol-free, and just thinking about it. No judgment, totally free. Just a great space to get in and chat whatever you want to chat about for an hour. And it's great. You don't have to turn your camera on. You don't have to speak if you don't want to. If you want to just come along and listen in for a couple of episodes, and if it sounds great, you can join in. It's completely up to you. There's absolutely no pressure on our behalf.
Yeah.
So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, just drop us the word community to info at the alcoholfreerevolution.co.uk.
Brilliant. I think the thing that comes across from those sessions as well is it's just all about celebration, not commiseration. You know, there's no like, oh, everything's really hard and I can't have a drink. And it's just all about how fantastic life is when you're not drinking. And it's just so empowering. I think when new people come along as well, is they just immediately kind of hit the ground running with meeting more people. And it's like, oh, you just get that immediate connection, which
Yeah,
is, which, really counts, I think, because sometimes stopping drinking can feel quite isolating. It feels like you're the only one doing it. So meeting a new tribe is, yeah, it's powerful. So that was Lisa. So
absolutely.
Lisa was on episode 45. And in the last couple, we had Tabin Armand on, who's an author, a speaker, podcaster as well. And I've known Tabin for a couple of years, and she is such an inspirational woman. I definitely would recommend anyone go back and check out that episode. And of course, last week was just a wonderful conversation, I thought, with Emily Taylor Rice, who's a
Great.
professional artist. And I've got to admit, some of the listening to Emily speak, some of it was quite a difficult listen, if I'm honest, because she'd really been to some dark places. But she was such an inspiring woman. I just thoroughly enjoyed meeting her. What did you think?
I would totally agree, and yeah, I thought it was a fantastic conversation. And the thing that stuck out for me is, yes, like you said, it was a difficult listen, but it really highlighted to me that often I think it brought home to me just how close that could have been.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
when you looked at her, how she got into drinking, and how her kind of drinking career progressed, and talking about her first taste of alcohol, and knowing that it did something for her. And yeah, I just count my lucky stars that it never went that far for me. But also, that said, listening to her story and her story of recovery, and how she's now turning that into the art that she produces, and that's such a positive person to speak to. It was a great
Mm.
listen, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it was spellbinding. I know what you mean, though. I was having those thoughts as well. It's because when she was explaining about, her family background, you're thinking there would have been no hint that this was kind of coming further down the track. But
Mm,
then when she talked about kind of moving abroad and the setup, when she was working abroad, you could kind of see how it came about.
mm,
And yeah, but then yeah, a real inspirational story. I thought really, really enjoyed talking to her. So yeah, so that's episode 47, and we're up to number 48, and we're coming up to a year, mate. We're coming up to a year.
I know,
We've
I
not missed
know.
1 week. It's all
Gonna
about
remember that
consistency.
birthday.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very funny. I'll get you a box of Zeno.
You better. But
For
David,
that.
are you listening?
Yeah, yeah. So we've got our alcohol free revolution summer party coming up in a couple of weeks. We're gonna go to the pub for a few pints of Lucky Saint or draft. Oh, speaking of Lucky Saint, have you tried the new one yet?
No, I haven't. Have you?
No, but I want to. I like
Yeah,
the
so do
lemon one
I.
they do. It's lime and sea salt, isn't it?
Lime and sea salt, and full of goodness as well, by all
Full
accounts.
of Lucky Saint goodness.
I definitely want to give it a go. Like all these things because I know you scream from the roof about the lemon lager. I'm not a fan, but so I don't want to necessarily commit and buy a case online to find that I don't like it. So I'm keeping my eyes open for it sitting on the shelves. In fact, I might drop them a little line and see if it's turned up anywhere yet and give it a go.
You can get so if you order it from them, you can get mixed crates.
Oh,
So you
can
can
you?
you can kind of pick what the makeup is of the 12.
Ah,
I think I
okay.
might do that actually. I need
Yeah.
to
Well,
amend my one.
yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. I'll check it out. I'll check it out.
Tell you the other thing I want to ask you about alcohol-free alternatives. Have you tried? I hear so many people nowadays celebrating about Mother Root. Have you tried that
Yeah,
before?
I had a bottle. Joe got me a bottle for Christmas.
What's it like?
I loved it. I really loved it. I liked the apple cider vinegar. It just kind of gave it.
What is it?
It's ginger root. It's basically very similar to a kind of ginger shot, but mixes really well with kind of sparkling water and a squeeze of lime. It's a nice long drink. Feels. I mean, I love ginger anyway. I love like ginger beer and what have you. I use it quite a lot as an alcohol-free alternative. So yeah,
Mm.
really, really love it. Really loved it. I haven't got round to getting another bottle, but the fact that I do need to buy another bottle probably gives you a good idea that I enjoyed it. So yeah, I recommend it. It's great. Really good.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think I'm going
Really
to
good.
get me one of those. So today, what do you want to talk about?
I think based on what we just talked about with Emily's episode last week, I think looking back at some of the things that pricked your ears up, pricked my ears up when we were drinking about and now looking back with fresh eyes, what we think kind of red flags were that maybe we should have paid attention to a little bit sooner, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to sound all doom and gloom because it's not, and that's not what this pod is about. But I think having discussed with you and having had that conversation just now about how close I think things could have gone south a bit quicker, if you know what I mean, before I've
Yeah.
made that final decision to switch, then I think it's probably worth talking about some of those things. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I made a list a little while ago about some of the red flags that in hindsight now, and I look back and I saw some of the behaviors that I was enacting with alcohol that definitely probably should have told me a little bit sooner that something wasn't quite right. And I think
Mm.
probably the big one, which I think is common for a lot of people, is drinking alone. Is that something
Hmm.
that you ever did?
Yes, I did. In a did I did drink alone at home, but I guess with the family dynamic with kids and with a family, I wasn't at home alone, if you know what I mean, a lot, but I would certainly, if myself and Joe had been drinking, I would certainly stay up and drink more once Joe had gone to bed. So I guess you could class that as drinking alone. Equally, I love to cook. From my background, I love to cook. So when I was preparing a meal, I would always use that time to probably get a bit of a head start on my drinking, I suppose, before we sat down and had a meal, particularly, if we're having a date night or something like that, and I was cooking at home, then probably have a few beers whilst I was cooking. And maybe Joe didn't know that I was probably a little bit further ahead in terms of getting a bit of a head start on my drinking. So technically, I guess that falls into drinking alone. But the areas where I used to drink alone a lot more was when I was working away from home. So if I was in meetings in London, I would frequently drink on the train alone because let's be honest, you're not
Mm.
socializing, you're not in company. So really, I looking back on that now, I really don't understand why I did that. The train journey for me home would be 45 minutes. It's not like I was traveling the length of the country and needed to pass the time. I'd often I think maybe I'll just get the next train if it's in 10 minutes and use it as an excuse to go to the bar in the station and have a pint before I came home. And sometimes after meetings, that would be I'd have been out drinking all night anyway. So it's like, what was I doing? I was just chasing that extra beer to go before I got on a train. And I know I've talked about this before, that I had the first kind of I know that in Alcohol Lied to Me, Craig Beck refers to it as a threshold moment rather than a rock bottom. But
Rock
for
bottom.
me,
Yeah.
that threshold moment for me was when I did exactly that and woke up on the last train home. And my eldest son now, oh gosh, it makes me shiver thinking about it. He was 10 weeks old, and I woke up miles from home. That horrible feeling of shit. I've got to get home. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Where am I? Where's my phone? Where's my keys? All of this. And that moment hit me, and that should have been it, but it took me another. That was a red flag, a huge red flag. Um, but I didn't stop drinking for 5, maybe 6 years after that. So the yes to drinking at home. Did I? I don't live alone, so I wasn't. I know that people who do live alone, um, that drinking at home can be a real problem. And I know, don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but I think home delivery as well is a real concern nowadays, and something that's come out of COVID. And the fact that you can just have alcohol delivered straight to your front door, I think it's shocking. But yeah, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there. That's the longest answer to a question I think I've ever given, but the answer to your question was yes.
Oh, mate, there's so much good stuff there.
Yeah.
There's that, yeah, can relate to so much that I think just as a side point, what you're mentioning there about the home delivery thing, that's kind of a really fascinating thing that seems to be blowing up
Mm,
at the
mm,
moment, and I think that's probably something we're going to talk about on a future episode with the
yeah.
guest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big one. But I think you're completely right. I think drinking alone, it's not. It's different. It means different things for different people because I used to drink alone, but mine was quite different to how you were doing it. So I used to find that because my wife Chris used to work away quite a lot. She was working for an airline at the time. She used to manage quite a lot of business class lounges in different
Mm,
parts of the world. So she'd be away quite a lot during the week, and I used to come home and just drink at home on my own. Yeah, you get home from work at 6 and you just drink until bedtime for no particular reason. Like you said, you're not socializing, and part of it I think was a way of killing time and
mm,
maybe alleviating boredom. And that's
mm,
definitely a reason that I used to drink alone a lot. Was particularly also when I used to go up to the football on the train. That would involve, I'd go up to Liverpool to watch Everton, and that would involve kind of probably a total of 6 hours in a day on a train there and back. And I used to just drink through the whole thing. So part of it was relieving boredom. Um, but I also sort of think as well is that I'm an only child, so I'm kind of quite used to being on my own. So
mm.
and I don't have a problem being on my own. I'd also be the kind of person who quite happily go and sit in a bar and drink on their own. Wouldn't bother me in the slightest. But strangely, I wouldn't go to the cinema on my own. That seems a bit weird. I would go and sit in a bar on my own. So yeah. But it's like you say, it's understanding the reasons behind why you're doing it. Because one thing I've kind of noticed since I've stopped drinking is I don't feel like I don't really get bored now because I've got
No.
life's quite busy. There's things that I'm constantly thinking about, and sometimes drinking alone is the byproduct of trying to escape from something. Maybe something's not right in your life. Maybe you've got stress and anxiety, and the drinking is what you're actually trying to escape from. What you're trying to kill boredom from. Because if you've got a
Yeah.
full life and you've got a lot of things that are filling you up, maybe that's family or professionally, then you don't necessarily feel the need to want to have to change your emotional state all the time or escape from something. You know
I
what I mean?
totally get that. Yeah, I totally get that. And I think back now, it's just this has opened all this thoughts in my head about drinking alone. And I used to do it way before I even met Joe. If I'm honest, myself and Joe have been married for 11 years now. But back when I was drinking before we met, I lived. I had a pub just behind where I lived, and I
You
would,
had a pub.
just behind. I didn't have a pub. Yeah, I mean, I used to go to the pub just directly behind my house, and think I will go and do some work there, or I'd take my laptop up there and use it as an excuse to think, oh, I'll just have a beer and do a little bit of work. I used to stupidly think it made me feel like I was being more creative with the work that I was doing. But the number of emails I sent out to people whilst 5 or 6 pints in was probably proof that that was not necessarily the
Yeah, I know what you mean.
case. That
Uh-huh.
reply to all, or yeah, so. But yeah, I used to just sit up there and I get, yeah, you're right, just kind of filling that boredom, filling that time, and actually you're right. And you saying that just now, I can't remember the last time I was bored. I cannot remember the last time I felt bored at all.
No.
I
Yeah,
just
it's crazy, isn't it?
fill my
It's a
time.
real
Yeah,
change.
yeah, totally, totally. So
That's
yeah, go on.
I was gonna say it kind of leans into this whole idea of like losing something when you stop drinking, whereas it is all about genuinely is about gaining. We talk about that an awful lot, but this kind of sense that you're losing your drink, which is something that you really love and you're going to miss. But the fact that you're not bored and the fact that you've got your time is filled with things that you enjoy doing, that just shows what you've gained
Mm,
from I think it feels counterintuitive to say, okay, if you stop doing something, you're not going to be losing something because you're taking something away, but
mhm.
you're just not recognizing all of this stuff that kind of comes as a result of making that one change, and it just fills your life up with stuff that you generally enjoy doing.
Totally. Once you find, and you will, I guarantee it, you will find things to do that fills that time. It might feel a bit bumpy at first, but once you start to find those things and fill that time, it is absolutely glorious. It is
Mm.
just
And
gone.
it and it, sorry to interrupt you. And it makes me sort of think as well because we often talk about this kind of difference between like an alcohol-free journey and an alcohol-free adventure. And a journey has a fixed destination, whereas an adventure is kind of open-ended and it's about curiosity and discovery and
Mhm.
that's and you're coming up to 5 years alcohol-free now. It doesn't stop, does it, at any sort of
No.
point? It just keeps that.
Yeah,
It's an evolution, isn't it? That just keeps going.
exactly. Exactly. So I'm now going to officially rename it an alcohol-free expedition.
Oh, love that. Yeah, that's
Even better.
brilliant.
Yeah, because the other two
That
have
is
been used
brilliant.
too much now, so that's it, official. We are now on an alcohol-free expedition because we
Expedition,
are
but that still
discovering
suggests you're
new
going
things.
somewhere, though. Actually, no, you're
Yeah,
right.
but
Yeah, no, I like that.
you're discovering untrodden lands,
Yeah,
getting
no,
all
that's true.
deep and
Alcohol-free
yeah.
exhibition TM.
Exhibition,
Did I say exhibitions?
expedition.
Expedition.
An
You
alcohol-free exhibition is entirely different thing
have to
altogether.
trademark that one. So apart from drinking alone, then what other things did you notice in your behaviour that perhaps now you look back on and think, oof, that was a red flag?
I was just, I couldn't believe how slowly other people drank.
Oh God, yeah,
It
yeah.
just blew my mind. I cannot. I felt that people that could make a glass of wine last 2 hours were simply just from another planet.
I mean, it's
And
rude.
it was,
I'm
it
like, hurry
used to
up!
frustrate
You're
me. It
holding me
used,
up. Hurry up!
yeah, it used to really frustrate me. And I think the reason for that was I was looking for a reason to buy a round so that I could get myself another drink without looking
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
was drinking too much. And
definitely.
I think even it shocks me. We talk about, I'm not going to go into the money you save when you're drinking, or you're not drinking, sorry. But I do remember buying full rounds at the end of the night, knowing damn well that that would never come back my way. It was never going to go round the other 10 people by the time I went home.
Mm,
Um, so you're probably parting with another 80, 90, maybe 100 quid
just for another drink.
just to buy another drink.
That's such a good one. Do you know what? I never thought about that before, but yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's
Remember
my
doing
round.
that.
I'll get them in, knowing damn well you got them in probably two
Yeah,
ago, but you were just trying to. That for me, watching people and what that did to my bank account, I don't even want to
yeah.
think about. It was
No, you're
just,
completely right.
yeah, yeah. So drinking too quickly, never understanding. I know when Joe was on the pod, we used to, during lockdown we bought a lazy spa. We had it in the garden, so we'd often sit in the garden and have a couple of beer or have a couple of beers in the sunshine and in the hot tub. Joe would make a glass of wine last an hour. I would need to be on 3 beers, 4 beers, just to, and it was just chugging them back, chugging them back, chugging them back, and the speed in which I was drinking.
You
So
know
that
what,
that was,
actually?
yeah, that was a huge red flag for me.
That actually dovetails into drinking alone for me because what you've described there, I actually found myself in situations where I would be choosing not to go out with work colleagues because I think, well, Chris is away, no one's at home. I can drink at my own pace. Whereas if I'm going out with people from work, you feel like you kind of restricted and you're not setting the pace. What you've just described about in terms of other people drinking slower, and you're sort of sat there, with an empty glass while someone's, had like one sip of a glass of wine. You're like, fuck's sake.
Mm.
Okay. So I actually would stay in rather than have to do that because I knew
Yeah.
sometimes people that I'm going out with that because work socials is most people aren't drinking anywhere near it at your pace and they're just
Yeah,
holding you up.
or
And
you'd
that's really
find there
sad
would,
because
yeah.
that means that you're not going out for the social, you're going out purely for the
Yeah.
intoxication.
I can certainly remember work social, or not even work socials. We'd always have a menu tastings on a Tuesday. That was the thing for me. Menu tastings once a month on a Tuesday, followed by a meeting in London. Knew damn well that was going to be going out for drinks afterwards.
Mm,
And if there was 10 of us normally going out and nine of us said that I'm not, I'm not going this time. And then there was that one person that I didn't like was going for a beer, I'd go
yeah.
for a beer. I had nothing in common with this person, but I'd go.
Yeah.
It was like,
Just just for the
just
just for
because
the
it was an
drinks.
excuse to go to the pub.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all classic stuff of, when you're inside the jar, you can't read the label. This is when you look at all of these things through logic and common sense. You're a bit like, why, what, why? That doesn't make any sense. But it's
Mm,
crazy what you'll do for a drug. That's what it comes down
exactly.
to.
Exactly.
It's a drug. I think something you got me thinking. Actually, some things you were speaking about there. What I think certainly how you behave around alcohol when you're out in public is quite an interesting one because uh, I see this all the time now, and with my friends, but also I used to do this. Is if you're out like at a restaurant, for example, and the waiter comes round, and it's like, does anyone want another drink? Even if I had 3/4 of a beer, I'd still be ordering another one.
Yeah.
So actually ordering another drink before you've even finished half of the one that's in front of you. I was oh it's regularly double parked. Didn't bother me
Yeah.
in the slightest.
Because you'd be thinking that, oh, if I don't have it now, I'm going to have to wait for these guys to finish their drinks before we start ordering another round. So I might, it's not that I need it
Mm.
with that beer. It's, well, it's probably going to take me 10 minutes to drink that beer. These guys are going to take another, and if you're calculating those things, if you're thinking these guys are going to take another 45 minutes to an hour to drink their drinks, I could be waiting
Yeah,
another hour before I have another drink. That's never going to last me an hour. That's, if those things are coming up for you, if those kind of questions are popping in your head, you need to listen to them
yeah,
genuinely.
yeah. I had this really weird thing that used to go in my head, and I'm not sure you will relate to this. I'm not sure anyone will relate to this. I think this is something a bit bit strange. That I kind of had this kind of fixation that once I started drinking, I had to have a drink at least every hour. And what I mean by that is that I kind of used to get kind of paranoid about it. Imagine if you kind of go out for a few drinks at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then for some reason or another, you can't drink for another 3 hours. Let's say, I don't know, you fall asleep or something. That feeling like after like 3 hours after you've had that first drink, you feel really rough and it's really hard to get back on it.
Hmm.
Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I kind of in some way in my head distilled that down to being right. If an hour passes, your buzz is going to start to drop off so much that you won't be able to kind of get it going. You won't be able to get it back again. So over the years, this kind of manifested in my head into this fixation that once I'd had the first drink, I had to keep topping it up every single
Hmm.
hour. And
Hmm.
that was always in my head when I was drinking. So if
Hmm.
you were at like a restaurant and you were then going to go to some pub that was 5 miles away and you were getting a cab and all this, I was constantly in my head getting fixated with this is going to take longer than an hour. This is going to take longer than an hour. I'm going to
Yeah.
lose my buzz. And honestly, I carried that around for decades. I don't think I've never heard anybody else speak about that, but
Yeah.
that's something that just built up in my mind. This fixation that I had to keep topping up the booze every single hour. How weird's that?
I know it's odd, isn't it?
It re-
It's so odd.
I'm hoping you're going to empathise with me at this point and go, oh yeah,
No,
I
I
used to
get
do
it.
this.
No,
But I
I
don't,
say it's
but
odd.
it's the
It's something
sort
I
of
can
thing.
completely relate to. I'm not, and name anything else in your life where you'd apply the same logic.
No, but
Nothing.
yeah, I know if I was, so this got to a point where I almost would, if I was going out somewhere, I'd have, some kind of alcohol in my possession so that I wouldn't let that. It was like being on a stopwatch all the time. Like an alarm was, when it was down to like 5 minutes, like an alarm was going off in my head. You're about to hit the 1 hour window,
Mm,
because I was just thinking that if I dropped below that 1 hour window, that I'm not going to want to get it back, and the
mm,
day's going to be ruined, and I'm going to feel
mm,
like shit, and I won't be able to get the buzz back. Because I was one of those sort of people that once I stopped for like an hour, hour and a half, I generally couldn't get it back going again. I mean, you kind of do, but
mm,
that didn't feel the same. Whereas my
mm,
best mate can quite happily like sort of stop and start all day long. He'll
mm.
have a couple at 2 o'clock, and then 3 hours will go by, and he'll start again at five. And I could never do that. I
Yeah.
had to keep it going the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
So I mean, that's drinking alone and drinking quickly kind of
Well,
ticked off. What else came up for you? Or
I was always one of those sort of people, and I think this is probably the same for you, that I was always the one who basically wanted to stay out. I was always the one, let's get another round. It was always me like driving the kind of let's keep going rather than, okay, that's me done. Because, we talk about this idea of like not having an off switch versus being able to take it or leave it. And I was definitely a no off switch
yeah,
person. And once I started, I was in it for the night. And I knew, and I actually kind of quite got quite good at it as I got older to starting later. So I kind of knew that, okay, if you start drinking at 1 in the afternoon, it's going to be carnage. And one of the rules I actually managed to stick by most of the time with alcohol was not drinking in the morning. And I don't mean like getting up and opening a bottle of vodka, but I mean just not having any beers, until it was PM. The only time I ever did that is if we were going to football and it was a 12:30 kickoff, and maybe there'd be a pint at 11:30. But invariably, that was like a discipline that I always stuck to. I never drank in the morning because I had this sense that once you start, you're not going to stop. So
well,
I wasn't too bad at kind of holding it off until like 4, 5 o'clock, maybe. Definitely in the weeks I could do that, obviously because of work. But at the weekends, I was always trying to put back when I started because I knew that was it. I was off until bedtime.
yeah, it's a really interesting hearing you say that. And that was something I was going to bring up when we were talking about Emily's conversation as well, and I'll come to that in a second. But um, you said there, I never drank in the morning, except unless, of course, it was then. Unless, of course, it was then, and I can relate to that as well. I never drank. I never got to the stage where I was drinking in the morning. But there are many of unless I was snowboarding because it was rude not to have a Grand Marnier coffee on the lift on the way up, right, at 8:30 in the morning, or unless I was at the airport, or unless we were going away, or unless it was Christmas morning, or whatever it happens to be, because champagne and
Oh yeah,
and
Christmas.
orange
Yeah.
juice is classy at 9 o'clock on a Christmas morning. So, and that I don't mean that to come over judgy, because I realise that last
No, you're
conversation,
right.
that
You're right.
last part may have done, but I genuinely do believe, having spoken or having had that conversation with Emily last week, that tipping point, that moment that drinking in the morning becomes a that you start to see that it gets rid of the night before, or that it actually helps in your eyes at that time. I think that is the tipping point for getting down
Serious
to a
problems.
similar, yeah, serious, far more serious problems. And
Mm,
if there are so many stages before that where you make those kind of excuses, I would never do that
mm.
unless this. I would never do that unless this. And then, but
Yeah.
you're right. I think that's the last rule to go with people. But if that
Yeah.
rule goes,
I never fundamentally brought into the idea of like hair of the dog. I know a lot of people talk about that. That was
I
never a
have on
thing for me.
holiday. Yeah.
See, I didn't. I always kind of just look at it in terms of, well, you're dehydrated. Drinking more alcohol is going to make you more dehydrated. So that was not something I ever did. I wasn't really able to. When I was hungover, I couldn't drink. I couldn't just drink. I'm hungover, so I'll just have a drink to get rid of it. That was never me. I always had to
Mm,
wait it out until the afternoon. But
mm,
by kind of 2, 3 o'clock, okay, you start thinking about it. But I was never one like, oh my god, I feel horrendous. Go
mm,
and get a Bloody Mary.
mm,
That was never me.
mm. Yeah, we were force-fed Bloody Marys by our manager in the
Yeah,
bar that
yeah,
I
you
worked
said
in.
that's.
Get a Bloody Mary down, or even worse, an espresso martini. So, can you? What other red flags did you see coming up for you, James?
I think another a big one that kind of resonated with me that we talked actually to so Dave Wilson about was hiding it. So hiding the amount that you were drinking or when you were
Mm,
drinking,
mm,
having a sense of, oh, other people are going to judge me if they know that I'm doing this, and that was definitely something that I found myself doing in the later years with my wife Chris, and it was really really subtle things like if we were sat at home watching the TV, and I'm just nursing a beer, and then Chris would get up and go upstairs for a minute or go to the bathroom, and I literally would, even if I had like half a beer, I would neck it and then quickly run to the fridge, get another beer, open it, sit back down again, and then she'd come back in, none the wiser that I'd literally just had another beer. So it was looking for opportunities to increase
mm.
your
Yeah, yeah,
intake without
yeah.
it being obvious that you'd had loads. And I was constant. I also used to find as well that I'd be putting the empty cans straight into the recycling outside rather than the kitchen bin. So it wasn't like, bloody hell, have you drunk 6 beers tonight? Fucking hell. So it was, there might be like one in there or two, but then there'd be
Yeah.
four outside and just stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
and, and again, even at the time, I kind of knew that that wasn't right. And in a way, it kind of almost feels like it's not quite like cheating on somebody, but it's lying. It's
It
being
is like,
deceptive, it's being deceitful. And it felt like I was not being the person that she knew. And I felt like it felt like cheating in a way.
yeah, yeah. I can completely relate to that, and that's you say about hiding alcohol. The first thing you think about is kind of hiding bottles under the floorboards, or out in the garage or anything like that. But that wasn't the case. But I can completely and utterly relate to that. Yes, absolutely. That whipping a couple of bottles out into the outside. Yeah,
Mm.
I remember that very, very well, and you know making sure you're the one that puts the bins out on on a Monday or a
Yeah.
Sunday night, Monday
I mean,
morning, and wheel them out gently. I love that moment now. That's a moment of it's a pure moment of bliss, and in our household now, and I can guilt free empty out the bin rather than that massive clatter on a Sunday night that just lets everybody in the street know just how many bottles of wine you've consumed that week.
well, I don't know about if it's the same for you, but where we live, there's the recycling gets picked up every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And when I was drinking, it wasn't enough for me.
No.
I was filling up the bin like weekly.
And that's a
I basically
240 litre bin.
I know it's those bins that people do cold plunging in now. But yeah, I actually used to have like a side bin that was just for kind of like glass or for cans, and I used to end up having to take that down the tip separately because I just couldn't keep up. Or the other thing I used to do as well was basically in the middle of the night or late night, or my neighbour, I'd like an old lady that lives next door. I used to sneak the empties into her bin.
Mm, mm,
I mean, she'd been
mm.
mortified because she's a bit of an old whinger. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's and at Christmas, I mean, it would take you a month to catch up. There'd be so much bloody
Yeah.
stuff in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I guess it falls into drinking alone as well, but hotel drinking for me, I used to work away from home a lot. So,
Mm.
hitting the hotel bar until but with nobody, just on your own, again, that kind of I've
It's
got some
crazy, isn't
extra
it? Because
work to catch up on or something. Oh God,
we
yeah.
we spoke about this a few weeks ago actually when we got together in Manchester.
Yes. We didn't get
Manchester.
together in Manchester,
No,
but
no,
you know
yeah,
what I
no,
mean. Yeah.
yeah, I know
Just for the
exactly what you mean. You had to lower the tone, didn't you? But but I still get this when I go into a hotel. My
yeah.
first thought is mini bar or go
Yeah.
down and get a beer. And I think that's to do with the fact, and it's same with airports as well. As soon as you go into an airport, so you immediately because you haven't really even 5 years in, you still haven't had enough time for that kind of regularity of behavior to get phased out.
Mm,
If you were in an airport every day or in a hotel once a week, probably wouldn't be a thing. But if you're only in a hotel once every few months, it still feels like the normal thing to do,
totally. Yeah, yeah.
right?
I get it. Yeah, totally. And I can relate to that. When that the glorious travel lodge in Manchester. But yeah, the same thing. Walk in and the first thing you think, because yeah, I've probably only been I don't work away from
Mm,
home anymore. I've probably only been in a hotel on my own 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years, really, if I think about it. So yeah, I never really
mm.
put it down to that. But yeah, drinking away
It
from home was huge.
It's weird. I used to work. When I'm in my old job, I used to go up to Leeds quite a lot because I used to manage Asda as a account manager, and like Asda was one of my accounts. And I was used to stay in the Mall Maison around the corner from Asda, and I was up there every
Hmm.
kind of couple of weeks. And I got into this kind of behaviour of when I'd kind of check into the hotel at 5, I'd go and I'd order a couple of beers at the bar and take them upstairs, and then I'd have a bath. And but some reason I don't know why, because again, it's a way of killing time. And still now, when I walk into a hotel, I immediately think, get a beer and have a bath. And it's
Yeah,
kind of like locked in my head,
get a
which is,
beer and have a bath.
I used to sit in the bath, listen to some tunes or a podcast, and have a couple of beers that I picked up in the bar, and that would
Yeah,
kill an hour. And I still
yeah,
have that beer and bath if I go to a hotel. So the other one actually that really stuck out to me now, and I reckon there'll be a few people who can relate to this. The other big red flag that I now look back on and think, phew, was, and you touched upon it earlier about just coming to sort of carry on drinking right until you go to bed,
yeah,
was getting a nightcap. So I could have been out and had 12 pints, whatever it may be, on a night out, and I would still always get home and try and get another drink. So
yeah,
I'd always get like a gin and tonic or something like that. just as a nightcap. And Chris
Yeah.
always used to look at me and be like, "Really? You're going to pour yourself a gin and tonic?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, why not? Why shouldn't I have a gin and tonic?" Oh, no, no, no. You get all defensive about it. And then
Yeah.
the amount of times that I'd wake up the next morning and next to the bed would be a full glass of gin and tonic because I literally just poured it and
Mm.
passed out. And it used to piss Chris off like you would not believe. And,
Yeah, I
kind of
bet.
rightly so. But she'd be
Yeah.
like, "You're just not going to drink it. You're just going to fucking pass out." And I'd be like, "No, I want to have the gin and tonic." And that's it, gone. Full glass
Yeah.
gin and tonic. First thing you see in the morning. It's just like, oh God,
Oh,
why
that's
am I doing
advertising,
this?
isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Bringing up.
You know what, mate? I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this as well. Is
Yeah.
obviously doing what we do working with a lot of people in their 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
One thing that I have learned in the last kind of couple of years is that all of these things that we've spoken about are incredibly common, and
Mm.
the narrative around alcohol is that everyone's having a great time and it's just you that can't hack it or you that's got a bit of a problem, and people start to doubt themselves and think, oh yeah, this is just not the same for me as it used to be. But the reality is, and I've said this before, and I firmly believe this, if you're in your 40s and you are drinking regularly, you must have a sense that, it, is this holding me back? Is this still doing what it used to do when I was 20 or 30? Can I carry on doing this? And you must have some awareness that it's having an impact on your health. You must do. I can't believe anyone in their 40s who drinks regularly does not
Must know.
have that awareness.
Yeah.
But most people just crack on because they think that, because what the world that we're shown and the narrative around alcohol is that it's just alcoholics that've got a problem. Why would you stop unless you're an alcoholic? Crack on. It's what everybody does. It's perfectly normal. But I think there are millions and millions of people out there who think this is just not for me anymore. But they
Yeah.
feel that they can't do anything about it because they think everybody else is having a wonderful time. And
Yeah.
I just don't think that's true.
Yeah, and I don't know who talked about it. And it's the job
Mm.
that we give alcohol through the various stages of our lives, and actually, the job that we gave it in our 20s was fun, and we asked that question at the end of every episode, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have changed that.
Mm.
But the job, when
No.
that job suddenly starts to become de-stressor or helping you sleep or just thinking it's helping you to socialize or de-stress from work or de-stress from the kids. Once it starts to take that new role and once you start to attach that thought to that new job, then yeah, I think generally, certainly for me, and I think you're right, it's so common that you have that feeling that actually this is just not doing what I remember. And you're always chasing that moment in your 20s when you had those massive belly laughs with your friends and did silly things. And that's not what you do when you're in your mid 40s, right? And you got, certainly in my case, two kids, and it's just the story's changed, the job role changes, and it
Mm.
manages lots of other different emotions rather than just going out and having fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when you think about it, though, it doesn't really make any kind of logical sense that something that you enjoy doing when you're 20 that you're going to enjoy doing when you're 50,
No.
because we're constantly evolving as people. We're getting into new things.
Mm,
It's so why, but the thing is we don't unpack those subconscious beliefs about alcohol, and sometimes ever.
mm,
That was that was the change, the big change for me is when I started to look at it and think, is alcohol fun? That was my belief. Alcohol makes everything more fun. Go if you're going to a football match, add some beers, it's going to be more fun. You go to the theatre, add some beers, it'll be more fun. Until it wasn't fun anymore, and it took me like decades almost to realize that this isn't fun anymore. Why are you adding alcohol to stuff thinking it's going to make things more fun? I wasn't consciously thinking, I'll go and get a drink, it'll be more fun. But my subconscious driver was, you're doing something, make it more fun, have a drink.
mm.
And when you start to unpack all of that, you start to realize that's just not true anymore. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's not doing the same jobs.
I think you're right. It's not. It doesn't mean to say that there weren't times in those years where drinking was fun. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but you stop. You're constantly thinking. You're not setting out to have that fun 4 nights a week when you're grabbing a beer on a Tuesday night. That's not looking for those fun times of your 20s. That's something entirely different, and that's when it
But
started to
is it?
shift for me.
But is it possible though that the fun times that you talk about, in your 40s and 50s, is alcohol? I feel like I'm coaching you here. Is alcohol what's giving you that fun, or is it the connection with the people that you're with? I think it gets, because alcohol is part of every social situation.
Mm.
it gets the fun gets attributed to the alcohol.
Yeah,
But
you're
if it's
absolutely
not
right.
there, does that immediately mean it's not going to be fun? And that's, I think, is the problem for people, is they think, well, if alcohol's not there, it's not going to be fun. It's like, well,
Yeah,
bollocks, that's not true.
yeah. And the people I'd be drinking with in my 40s were people I'd probably known for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So the
But I think
connection's there. I'm
it
not
is
trying to
fun.
make that connection. Yeah, exactly. The fun is
When you're in
underneath
your
it.
20s, it is fun. That's
Yeah,
exactly the
that's
point
it. Yeah,
about it being the job.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is part of the fun. But it's
yeah.
when it's, I think, part of what aging is us succumbing to what we've done in the previous years of our life. I don't particularly buy into the idea that people die of old age. You don't. You're succumbing to what you've done. I honestly believe this, that even at 50, or in your case 55, 60, you can still have that you can still have the best years of your life ahead of you. I know that sort of sounds like the sort of thing that old people do say, but I honestly believe that because,
Yeah.
I stopped drinking at 46. You were 40, you're 46, weren't you?
47, I think. 47,
47. And
47, 48.
honestly, I
Yeah.
have never been happier or healthier in my entire life.
No,
Nowhere near as healthy at any point in my entire life. And that includes when I was 20, 21. And I feel far more capable of doing, I feel stronger and healthier and more sharper than I've ever been. And I honestly think that when you actually remove the alcohol, you sort your diet out, you sort your exercise out, you sort your sleep out. I just honestly think that anything's possible. I think people just have really underestimate quite the impact that alcohol has on the whole of your health, not just alcohol itself, but all those other systems. And when it's not there, I honestly think there's nothing holding you back, at whatever age you
100.
are.
I totally agree with that. And I actually, to be honest with you, I'm not. I thought I was in pretty decent shape when I was drinking. I genuinely did. I thought I was, I would happily be knocking out 2, 3 marathons a year. And I thought, yeah, that's great. Because I can do that. But I had no idea. I literally had no idea till I stopped, and it was partly my intention, but it's only once I stepped away from it and actually started to see how quickly it changed,
Mm.
literally how quickly it changed. That was the huge one for me. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it was when I was chatting to Andy Delverfield not long ago as well, and he said, look, and we're of similar age, I think. Well, I'll be careful here because you always put a few
I mean,
extra years on me, but
he's about to take his pension out as well, is
sorry, Andy, if you're listening.
he?
But
Sorry, Andy.
yeah, he said, what is there to be worried about? And I was like, that's so true, isn't it? When the second half of your life, what is there to be worried about? What is there to be scared about when you can take on things like this and do it? It's yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's
yeah,
incredible.
it
So
is.
yeah, well, that's probably a good place for us to wrap up, and on a positive note,
On a
what's
positive note,
possible.
indeed,
Yeah, really
indeed.
enjoyed this one. Good session.
Well,
And
enjoy the sunshine, and it's going to be a scorcher all week.
yeah,
Yeah,
and we'll be back next week. You and me. We're going to do another one. Just
we
thee
are
and
indeed.
me. We're a
Thee and
bit.
me. It'll be
So
great.
yeah, I've
Have
got some big guests coming up, but you've got a couple of episodes of me and Steve first to
to
enjoy,
endure.
endure.
Cool, cool. All right, mate. Have a good week.
Brilliant. Yeah,
Good. Take
fantastic.
care.
Take care. See you
Bye
soon.
bye.